name came up a lot, it sounds more when I was not around. Certain people that I know, they ain't no longer about. My name came up a lot, it sounds more when I was not around. Certain people that I know, they ain't no longer about. My name came up a lot, it sounds more when I was not around. Certain people that I know, they ain't no longer about. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my seat. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my seat. We hustle, but the night we know that they ride or die. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my seat. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my seat. We hustle, but know that they ride or die. These brothers, my guys, know that they fly. Know that they fly. Know that they ride or die. Cold, these brothers, my guys, know that they fly. Know that they fly. Know that they ride or die. CJ Ike, they ain't no longer about. They ain't no longer about. They ain't no longer about. CJ Ike, they ain't no longer about.
Hello, I am Uncle Mike, your favorite gamer's favorite uncle, and we are back here in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 after spending some time in Way of the Hunter in the hunting sim on Xbox Series S, but now we're here in Flight Sim, still on the Xbox Series S. We are going to be doing a technical and stressful flight here tonight. We're actually going to be practicing instrument landing system, or the ILS approach. We are in Myrtle Beach. The last time I actually flew down here into Myrtle Beach was when I was recreating all of the flights of M0A's flights from Florida up to Oshkosh this year, which you can see on my YouTube channel. And we're going to get started here. You can see I've already got the plane started. I brought it down here, did the run up and everything, so everything's checking out good. But I didn't put in all of the instruments, and I didn't put in the frequencies and all that, because I thought that's something that we could talk about here before we get up in the air. So we're going to be flying around Myrtle Beach here, but as you can see, the weather sucks. We're here in heavy rain. The wind's not too bad, but we just can't see. Hence, we're going to be practicing instrument flying and instrument approach here tonight. But before we do that, let me go ahead and do a few notums here for everybody. The first notum is that I have a goal to reach 500 subscribers here on my YouTube channel. The reason why 500 subscribers or more is because once I'm beyond 500 subscribers, I get a community tab, which is kind of like a message board, Facebook, Twitter, on the actual YouTube channel, so I can leave, basically the community can chat through this. And so it's a community board with, where I can leave pictures and information and such. So that's why I'm trying to reach 500 subscribers. And to do that, I need 500 subscribers, but I am going to reward you, the community, once we get there, and doing a $50 US Xbox gift code giveaway, and you can read all about that down in the description below, so please check that out. Also, as I have been trying to do with my most recent live streams, is that once they are processed from a live stream into a video by YouTube, I add chapters. So if you are watching this after the live stream, you can probably go down in the description below and click on the chapter of what you would like to watch. And for this, it's usually takeoffs and landings and cruise or any other event that happens that I find eventful, and I put a chapter notice down there, and you can see that I've been adding chapters in quite a bit of other of my videos. And I have also been doing YouTube shorts, so please enjoy those and click the like button, especially if you do. Please click that like button, that's always nice. So a NOTAM is a notice to air mission, so it's just shortened to NOTAM, N-O-T-A-M. So it stands for notice of air mission or notice to air mission. So that is what I just go ahead and call them NOTAMs, since I have such a affiliation, I guess if you want, and admiration and like of flying. So instead of just saying notes or housekeeping or what a lot of other people call them, I just decided just to go ahead and use NOTAMs. So that's the NOTAMs here for us. And I guess there's another NOTAM, and that can be, click that like button if you do, subscribe if you haven't, and if you are watching this after the live stream, come chat with me during a future live stream like what we've got here, which is Vasilka. No, sorry, Vasilka. Vasilka here in chat. Vasilka, thumbs up because you are amazing. Thank you for joining me here. This is going to get a little bit of stressful, and it's going to be a little technical. So again, that's why one of the reasons why I'll put chapters in here. So bear with me, but I want to go through this description because this is an explanation, because this is somewhat of a how-to flight. We are in the new Flysimware Cessna 414. So if you are here just looking at airplanes and want to know about airplanes and so on, this is the Cessna 414 Chancellor. It was just released on Xbox, and it has quickly become my favorite airplane. It has a right balance of power, technical difficulty, old school steam gauges. It just feels like when I was flying. It doesn't have all of this glass cockpit. It just feels right to me. So that's one reason why it has quickly become my favorite airplane. So yeah, it's very early in the morning for you over there. It's not very late over here where it's 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. So let's go ahead and get started. So one of the things that I'm going to bring up, and I'm going to explain it, and then I'm going to kind of show a picture of what I have explained here. But what we are going to be doing here is we're going to be practicing. I just now noticed actually today, this is like a hidden Mickey, a hidden Mickey Mouse here. But we are here at Myrtle Beach. So right down here is Myrtle Beach, right on the coast of South Carolina. And yes, I'm from South Carolina, so I kind of picked South Carolina to do this. Kind of could pick anywhere, but it's got a nice instrument landing system approach that we could then practice on. So here's Myrtle Beach. Down here, we're going to be taking off to the bottom of the page, so to the south. That's what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be taking off out over the water. We're going to be landing then over the land. And that's what we're going to be doing here tonight. Maybe change it up with a few different ways that we can shoot this approach. And I have turned off air traffic control. Actually, have I turned off air traffic control? You know, the easiest way to turn off air traffic control is I will just switch frequencies. There you go. Air traffic control is now turned off. So yeah, so what we're seeing here is we are seeing the hidden Mickey of Myrtle Beach. So Myrtle Beach is where we're at right now. We're actually sitting right here in this corner right here. And what here on the white page, this is the instrument landing system approach plate. And so this is telling us all the information. I'm not going to go through everything here. I'm going to go through the kind of the pertinent information, and then we can have a chat afterwards for those of you who really want to talk more, or you could ask questions or whatever. But this is really, we're going to fly it, and we're going to fly it probably a couple times, maybe in different ways each time, maybe do a full stop, come back here, talk about it, and then go back go back up in the air and shoot the approach again. So got plenty of fuel. I filled up the plane. Plane's running right here, so everything is good to go. So this is what it looks like. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take off over the water, and we're going to use the alternate missed approach fix. And the actual missed approach is to climb. It says right down here, there's also a description for a missed approach. It says climb to 800 feet, then a climbing right turn to 3,000 feet to a heading of 235, and then intercept the radial down here for Grand Strand VOR. So a lot of information, we can talk about that. So that's basically the missed approach. We're going to use the alternate missed approach fix, which is to go to Hori, which is a non-directional beacon over at this little airport, Hori, Conway Hori Airport, which actually just had a crash the other day, killed 2 guys. So we're going to actually take off, and we're going to head up here to Hori, and then we can go into a holding pattern, and then we can fly back over here and then intercept the instrument landing system, or the ILS. So that's what we're going to do. We've got some frequencies we've got to dial in, and I haven't dialed those in yet, so we can do that together. But one of the things that I also did, for those of you who maybe are new to this, is to give you a mental picture of what this looks like, of what we're doing. So we're going to be using an instrument approach on Myrtle Beach. That's going to give us guidance. We're going to use a frequency over here at Hori that's going to tell us which way to go. So we're over here to Hori on the non-directional beacon. We're then going to intercept the 288 radial off of Grand Strand, and then come and intercept the instrument landing system, and then come in and fly the approach in bad weather and land back at Myrtle Beach. So you can see here in orange, the solid orange is our flight path. And it's going to be stressful. We're not going to be able to see any, well, we might be able to see some stuff if we break in and out of the clouds. But down low here, we're going to have almost no visibility. So this is a visual of going to be our flight path. And if we're going to fly something different, then we'll go ahead and get rid of that. So let me go ahead and bring up. So this is just what the chart shows us. I made that little color-coded thing to maybe help you visualize, and that's part of what instrument flying is really all about for even us simmers. If we talk real world, that's a whole nother thing. I am not a certified flight instructor, so this is instruction for flight simmers. This is not necessarily instruction for real world. Go get your local CFII and learn how to fly instruments in the real world, because if you don't, it's just too many things that will kill you if you don't really understand. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be flipping back and forth here. So now we're back into the airplane. So let's get into the airplane, and let's talk about sex. No, I'm just kidding. What that who's saying that? Not Boy George. He was in Wham. Wham. Boy, no. I can't remember. Okay. So here we are. And so I'm going to be flipping back and forth between the charts here just for the explanation, then we'll get in the air. So we might need to time ourselves in a holding pattern. So I'm going to make a timer up here so we can actually start it if we want. So it's just a timer, so that way we can time things if we need to, and then we can zero it out. So I'm going to go ahead and get that all set up. Let's see, what else do we need? Well, we need, if I switch over and I show you here on the chart, Hori out here is 370. That's an NDB for our automatic direction finder, so that's 370. So if I come back over here, I need to dial in 0, 3, 7, and 0, and now transfer it to the active, and so now that will show up right here. Now we're on the ground, so it can't pick up the frequency right now, but eventually this arrow here, all right, it will actually just point directly toward Hori, which is important to us because we need to know how to go directly to Hori. All right, so we've got that going for us. We also need to dial in here onto VOR1, we need to go ahead and nav 1. We need to dial in the frequency for the instrument landing system. So again, if I come back over here to the chart and we look over here on the approach plate, the localizer and DME for runway 18 here at Myrtle Beach is 109.5. So let's go ahead, and if I was doing this before, if this was not like a how-to, I would program all of this in beforehand, but I wanted to actually show you because that's just kind of what I was doing, was a how-to. So 109.50, and we'll transfer that to the active, and now you can see that everything's moving over here. Now we know that this is runway 18, but the actual magnetic course here is 177 degrees. So we'll come back over here, and I am just going to go ahead and dial in, change this arrow to 177 degrees. So that is now the, and of course the reason being that is because we're angled up here. We haven't turned onto the runway yet. Nope, there we go. All right, and then finally what we need to do is, because remember, we are going to be coming in after we pass Horry here, we're going to be making a right turn and then going toward Grand Strand, but then intercepting the ILS. So I need to know what Grand Strand is, and it's 114.4. Because remember, this is what a visualization looks like of our flight path. We're going to take off, we're going to do a climbing right turn to 3,000 feet, direct to Horry, which is the ADF, direct to Horry. Then we're going to fly past Horry, intercept the 288 radial, which is right here, coming off Grand Strand, come inbound, and then once we intercept the ILS, we'll land. That's what we're going to be doing. So we're doing this little traffic pattern here. So that is what we are doing there. So let's go ahead and dial that in. Grand Strand was 114.4. So I will come over here and I will type in frequency 11440 and enter that in. So it should now, there you go, we got its information. It's bearing 57.6 degrees magnetic and 12.5 is the distance. Now what do we want to do here? What we want to do is this. Okay, so all this information right here is using nav 1, which is off this instrument right here, 109.5, which is the instrument landing system. This right here, OBS, it is reading nav 2, which we just dialed in, which was 114.4. But if we go back to our chart, this line right here on the 288 radio coming from Grand Strand, and this is not all to scale, so don't think this is all to scale 1-to-1. It's not. So we want to intercept the 288 radial, and that's coming off of Grand Strand, but we want to be going 180 degrees opposite of that, which is then 108 degrees, 108 degrees in toward Grand Strand. So we're going to come up, we're going to turn, we're going to go up here, we're going to make a right turn, come in and shoot the approach. So I want this instrument dialed in to 108, because that way, and you can see how it changes as so 105, 108. So there we go. We've pretty much now got everything set up for shooting the approach. Now, because it's bad weather and we've got to be honest about ourselves, excuse me, there we go, I set this to 108 right here. Sorry, I did not change it, so that's what I did. I set this, I will go back. It was on north, and so I went ahead and I set this to 108, so that way, that is our inbound radial once we get past Horry. So that's what we're doing. So we're just basically doing a little traffic pattern. I've set up our own traffic pattern using instruments, because as you can see, we really can't see nothing out here. I mean, there's a plane over there. There was a plane over there, but with the rain and the clouds, it sucks, right? The weather sucks. But now, because we're really concerned about spatial disorientation, right, is that I want the airplane to help me out. So one of the things that we are going to do here is, remember, we're going to climb out and then we're going to do a turn direct to Hori. Well, I know that the runway is runway 17, so I'm going to get the heading bug here on my, for the autopilot. It's already preset for runway heading. I'm going to go ahead, and we know that we need to climb to 3,000. Why? You might say, how do you know that? Well, because over here on our approach plate, the alternate approach fix, or missed approach fix that we're going to be using, the missed approach tells us to climb to 800 and then a right turn. We're going to go right turn to Hori at 3,000 feet. So because of that, then down here, I'm going to go ahead. This is where it's at on the, this is how you set then the autopilot's altitude that you want the autopilot to intercept. And I'm going to go ahead and arm that. So now it's armed. So the autopilot, part of the autopilot already now knows, hey, whatever Uncle Mike's going to be doing, if he turns on anything that has to do with the altitude for the autopilot, what he wants to do is he wants to climb up and intercept 3,000 feet. Because real quick here, as we get up off the ground and we feel safe, we're going to get that autopilot on and have it help us. Because why not? And that's probably one of the things that a lot of pilots, a lot of VFR pilots, they get into problems because they have an autopilot. They have all the instruments to fly, instrument flying, but what happens? Well, they get into a problem and they rely on themselves rather than letting the plane help them, like an autopilot. Like, hey, keep my, like a lot of times, a lot of these planes have just like wings level or roll control. This plane does not. But like a new Cessna does. So you can actually just say hit wings level, heading hold, and the plane just flies, right? It goes level and it just flies until you tell it to do something else. And if you're in clouds and you can't see, but your inner ear and stuff might tell you you're straight and level and you're in a spiraling descent of 1G. And so you think everything's normal, and then you pop out of the clouds and there's the ground and you die. And everybody with you dies. So we're going to use the autopilot on this flight a lot, because why not? Yes, you want to practice in the real world without the autopilot, but for us flight simmers, let's learn how to do this and at some level be a inspiration or a role model for what maybe pilots should be doing in the real world. Maybe, I don't know. So I've now got my heading bugged in here. I've got my altitude bugged in here. We've got all of the instruments dialed in that we need. We have a mental picture of what our flight path is going to be. That's kind of what we say a lot of times is be ahead of the airplane. And what that means is get things set up ahead of time, right? Don't just sit there and listen to music or whatever it is. Get set up ahead of time, right? And so you're in front of the airplane. You know really what's more about, you're thinking about what's gonna happen or what could happen. And so that's why we're spending some time down here on the ground, right, doing this, is we're spending some time. Again, we're not gonna be talking to air traffic control or anything like that. We're gonna be flying this, all on our own. So this is not like a really a study level flight where we're gonna get ATC and all that kind of stuff in here. But that's what we are going to be doing. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the flight director. So there is the flight director. But one of the things that we can do already here is I'm going to go ahead and activate the flight director. And I'm going to tell it that when I turn on the autopilot, I want the autopilot for right now, and that might be a little bit too much, so let's go ahead and go to about right, that I want the autopilot to pitch the airplane up to that flat bar. So it kind of helps hold our climb as we're climbing out here. But I won't turn on the autopilot until I feel like we're safe, probably around the 500 foot mark or so, maybe even more than that, especially since we can't see out. But we are pretty much ready to go. All the lights are on, everything is ready to go. So yeah, let's go flying now. And so yeah, parking brakes coming off. Got this airliner here. He's about to release also into this soup that we've got for this heavy rain. He's spooling up. We can hear him spooling up. Again, we're not listening to air traffic control, so but look at that. Look at this. So we don't have. We'll let him go. So I think we've got now, like I said, a real mental picture of what we want to happen. We'll go ahead and brief right here. We've got plenty of runway. We're at Myrtle Beach International Airport, and so we're gonna basically, head down go full power. We'll check to make sure we've got full power before we release the brakes. We'll full power. If we have a problem before we get to rotation speed, because we got enough runway, we'll go ahead and come back, complete the idle, hard braking, and just straight ahead. Because we're in a twin, main thing is blue line speed. Basically, we want to keep this thing flying if we lose an engine. And so if we get into the air, we're going to go gears up, positive rate, gear up, and we're going to then shoot for blue line, which is blue line on here. Speed is about 105 knots. So we're going to do 105 knots here on the climb out. And we're going to maintain in case we lose an engine. We can then actually still climb with one engine at 105 knots, or just a little better than 105 knots. And then we'll figure it out, because we can't see. I mean, we can't see nothing. So it's really, our options are ditch into the sea, which is straight ahead. Or if you have a mental picture, is to work and come back and shoot the approach on one engine. So, all right. I think the runway is now clear. So let's go ahead and line up and wait. I mean, look, this is soup. This is nasty. I don't even know if we're gonna have minimums when we land. Minimums are when we can see how low we are when we can see the runway. I'm sure we're just at about minimums. The minimums for this is 200 feet. So we'll come up here. All right, we're gonna put on the brakes. I'm gonna go ahead and put on the parking brake here. And so right down here is our radar altimeter, and it's set for, so we'll get an alarm at 200 feet. All right, so I think we're ready to go. Parking brake is set because we're going to spool the engines up. Check power, here we come. And coming into full power, get those turbos going. Turbos going. Gonna back off the power just a little bit. Everything is looking good in the green. I like to see what I see. Brakes coming off, and here we go. Airspeed's alive, 40 knots. $60 knots, 70 knots, 80 knots, 90 knots. Rotate, positive right, tap the brakes, gears coming up. We're going now for 105, blue line right there on the airspeed indicator. You can see it, blue line. Trim, trim, trim. Here we are, we're in the soup now. Oh, some airplane, something right there. All right, everything is looking stable. Autopilot is on, but because we set everything is looking good here. We passed through 800. We are now going to turn direct to Hori. You might be saying, how do you know what is direct to Hori? Well, I will show you, because the ADF here, see where it says ADF, that white? The ADF has activated, and so it's at a heading of 322 or something like that. And you can see that I've set the heading bug for 322. Oh, we can still see the ground. It came out of the clouds a little bit. Maybe say, what was that beep? That beep was that we're 1,000 feet coming into our 3,000 feet. I'm below blue line speed. I'm going to go ahead and tell the autopilot, hey autopilot, go ahead and pitch down a little bit, maintain that 105. I'm going to come off the turbos in the climb. I'm going to go to 30 inches of manifold pressure. I'm going to go ahead and tell the autopilot, go ahead and just come on, pitch on down. It's okay, buddy, you can come on down. You can use either a hotkey like I have, or you can come down here and you can use this trim wheel right here. Pitch up and down. Tell the autopilot to gyro stabilize, so there's a little bit of a delay. But there we go. So we are basically now flying direct to Hori. Why? Because the ADF is pointing straight ahead. So, whew, so a lot going on when it's instruments. A lot going on when you can't see. It's good to have a mental picture of what you're trying to accomplish here. So we've already peeled back the power. So we're still accelerating now because we've reached our 3,000. Autopilot's capture that. You can see that the ADF, we're going straight to Hori here. Right there. Straight to Hori. 30 inches of manifold pressure. RPMs are looking good. I'm not too worried about those. So plane's looking good. Gonna go ahead and keep our landing lights on because we're basically working the pattern, so we're still in the vicinity of the airport. It's not really going to help us since we're in the soup, but hey, why not? So now we'll just go ahead and let the autopilot do its thing. If we don't want to be so fast, we can go ahead and slow down. We'll go 25 inches of manifold pressure. So we're at 3,000 feet. Now, you might be thinking, how do you know when we're at Hori? Well, one of the things is that that white needle right here, the ADF needle, that's going to spin around as we go over the top of it, so we'll know that we're there. Also, this airplane does have GPS, so if I come out here to range out, so there's Hori right there. That blob right there, that's Hori. So we're going to go ahead and maybe about right there is what we'll zoom out to. So here we are. We're cruising along here at about 158 knots. We're clean. We're at 3,000 feet. We're heading direct to Hori, which is what we wanted to do. We're just doing this little traffic pattern here. Remember, once we get past Hori, which is the ADF, which this needle right here is going to flip. And again, I can reset the heading bug on the autopilot, so we're right at 320. So I'll just recenter that, let the autopilot, again, let the plane work for you. Let it help you. It's got these systems. Let it help you. Get instructions and learn how to use your aircraft features and functions, because like I said, it actually might save your life in the real world. Or it can save your life, if you want to look at it, save your life in the sim. So, like I said, on one of my first live streams, I ran out of fuel in the King Air and had a crash. So, because I just didn't even follow checklists. I didn't follow checklists on one of my recent live streams. And so I can only imagine what happens in the real world. Of course, another thing you can do is you can do exactly what I'm doing in practice, but do it in a slower airplane. Do it like in the 172 with the steam gauges, or 172 with the glass cockpit. You don't have to do it in such a fast airplane. I just really like this airplane. I just really like the airplane. It looks cool. It is cool. So. Comtech engineer, I'm sorry, and I failed to do this too because I was so busy and getting all set up. A Comtech engineer, an action applies. Thumbs up because you are amazing. Thank you for joining me, all three of you here. But yeah, we are practicing instrument flying here in bad weather, and it is really bad weather here on the coast of South Carolina right now. As you can see, we can't see anything. So the main reason why I did that here is also because you could fly this whole sim like this if you wanted to. Don't even look outside. Maybe that's what we'll do. But the good thing is that you can't see anything outside anyway, so... Alright, so if you notice, slowly our ADF needle is getting more and more sensitive based on how close, because we're getting close to Hori, that blob right there. So it's gonna switch over, but we know that we want to actually. Hey, thank you. Well, we'll see here, huh? So we are getting real close to Hori. It'll flip over. It'll point behind us once we actually pass over that radio beacon. So there you can see it's passing over. There it goes. So we have now passed over Hori, or actually we're right on top of Hori now. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to keep going until this instrument right here, starts to center. And when that starts to move, which won't be too long, when that starts to center, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the autopilot. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say, hey, over here, nav 2. I'm going to tell the autopilot to use this instrument of what it should be flying, not heading mode. So I'm going to click the nav mode. So it's going to follow nav 2. And that's nav 2, which is using this frequency right down here. So we're just, again, mental picture. We can see what we're trying to accomplish. So you can see that needle's moving. That needle over there, I can see it slowly moving as we're getting closer to that line, that 108 direct in radial to Grand Strand. So I'm just watching that, letting the plane help me out here. Flying along here at 158 knots. November 414 X-ray, looking really sharp. What a great looking airplane, huh? What a great looking airplane. So here we are. You can see the needle is. I'm probably going to tell the autopilot once the needle gets right there to about right where I have the cursor. Then I'm going to tell the autopilot, hey, use that instrument to fly for your direction. So I'm just going to go over here. I'm watching that needle. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to press that button. Again, I'm going to be in front of the airplane. I'm going to get prepped. I know what's supposed to happen. I have an image of what's supposed to happen, which is we are going to turn to basically about 110 degrees, depending on the wind. So there we go. I'm going to tell the autopilot now, hey, autopilot, use nav 2 as your direction. And there we go. It is now turning like silk. Yeah, you got it. And it's like silk because we have a plan. We can visualize the plan. We're staying ahead of the aircraft. So what we're going to do is when we land here, we're going to stop. We're going to go back to the end of the runway. And then maybe we're going to shoot the approach completely different. One way that I haven't even, demonstrated to you, or we'll have to literally mental picture it. All right. So you can see the autopilot is trying to keep that needle right there centered, and it's doing a fine job. Okay, the other thing that we need to do is, because if we come over here to the chart, to intercept, we really need to be down around 1,600 feet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, hey, autopilot, I want you to come down to 1,600 feet. I'm going to go ahead and arm that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the autopilot, hey, autopilot, I want you now to descend down. Well, I'm just using my, again, as I showed the wheel, I'm just telling now and say, hey, descend on down here. We're already kind of slow in terms of, really our speed, so I don't need to reset the engines or anything like that. So now we're just going to go into a descent. So the autopilot is still flying, keeping this needle centered for right now. And we're now in descent to 1,600 feet. And now, as we fly this direction, we're going to watch this needle right here as it becomes centered. What was that beep? That beep's telling us that we're within 1,000 feet of our target altitude. That's what that beep was. So we're watching for this needle right here to start centering, because that's the middle of the runway. That is the center of the runway. Yep, here we go. Now, if I go back over here to the chart, I can tell you that this line right here is telling us that it's 13 miles from Grand Strand out to that point. That's where we're going to intercept here, okay? So you might be saying, well, where's that show up in the cockpit? Well, where it shows up in the cockpit is right here. 114.4, right now we're 17 and a half miles away. We'll be at that point in space when this reads 13. So we know between under 14 miles, we're going to be ready for this needle to start moving. Again, mental picture. You know me, I like to have fun on my live streams and stuff like this, but one of my little hobbies, if you really want to call it a hobby, one of my hobbies is researching and also flying, reenacting other people's flights, and some of those are fatal accidents. And so people die, right, flying with stuff like this. Too many people. Actually, in general aviation, we're almost having one fatal accident a day in the United States. A fatal accident every day in the United States. Okay, we're coming up here. I'm going to stop talking. 14 and a half, so this needle's going to start moving. What am I going to do? I am going to tell the autopilot just to switch over and intercept with nav 1. Not nav 2, this is nav 1 now. So we're within 14 miles right here. 13 and a half, needle's moving. There goes the needle. I just told the autopilot, use this instrument now. All right, what are we going to do? We're also going to start slowing down. So gears coming down. We're below 171 knots. Gears coming down. Gears coming down. First notch of flaps because we're below 171. That's going to basically be like our air brakes. It's going to slow us down. Slowing us down. All right, here we go. Now this instrument right here, that needle is the center of the runway. So as you can tell, we're off to the left. We need to go to the right to get that needle back centered. The autopilot will take care of it. It's got its own little plan of how it's going to do things. So you can see it's offset a little bit. It's compensating for the wind and all of this kind of stuff. Oh, we can actually see the ground. Rain's not too bad. Can't see the runway out in front of us, but we can see the ground. That's a good sign. So everything is looking good. Speed's looking good. We're level at 1,600. All right, so now what you'll notice is down here, because the nav 1 is dialed into a localizer, the instrument landing system, you can see that localizer and glide slope are also green. So now the airplane is going to use this arrow to center left and right, and this little triangle here and that line here are going to start to come down, and then that's going to capture that, and we're going to fly that down to the ground because that's the glide slope. That's the angle that we should be flying. This will start to move here when this gets down to about 6-7 miles. Oh no, sorry, not this one. This one over here. Nav 1. This is nav 1 over here. So we got about 2 miles to go, and that little triangle, the glide slope, it should start to then come down, and then the plane should intercept, and it will fly that path down. Once we get down to decision height, and then we will come off autopilot, I'll land full stop, we'll taxi back, and we'll do it again. But we'll do it a little differently though. Everything is looking good. I like what I'm seeing. We'll come down. I don't need to look outside. We're on instruments. All right, you see they're moving. They're moving. The glide slope is moving. We're pretty much on center line, and the glide slope is moving. So what I expect to see here is when this gets down to here, I expect then a pitch down. Again, I'm not even looking outside. There's no reason to look outside. I can't see anything outside. Why confuse my body by trying to look out and feel what the plane is, right? All right, here we go. So I expect now an intercept. There's the intercept. You can see the plane just pitched down. You can see that on the vertical speed. I'm going to go ahead and lower another notch of flaps. That'll help us stay slow. There we go. nothing. Can't see nothing. But I've got a mental image, and I trust that I am lined up with the runway, coming down at a nice angle at 100 and right now about 25 knots. So I'm going to go ahead and come back off the power and slow down a little bit. 23 inches of manifold pressure. Slow down a little bit. Don't want to get below blue line. Just slow down here. There's a little bit of wind, so it might fluctuate the autopilot, but let the autopilot be your co-pilot if you're single pilot operations. If you have another pilot with you, use them, right? Do that crew resource management. Work as a team. If you don't have a team, then use the autopilot. In something like this, you can see that so much is going on. It's not like, you're not a very good pilot, you got to use the autopilot. No, use it. If anything, just to keep you level so you can calm down and figure out what's going on. All right, so we're 900 feet above the ground. Remember, we've got also our radar altimeter here, but we can also look right here, so 900 feet. So we're close to the ground, and we can't see nothing. But everything's looking good. We're a little bit below glide slope. All right. Here we go. Oh, I can start to see the ground. We're at 450 feet. Remember, we got to be able to see the runway at 200 feet. You'll hear another alarm. There you go. I see the meatball. All right. It's not really runway in sight, but it's... There we go. All right, 300 feet. 300 feet, I got the runway. Here, that beep, autopilot is off. It's all me now. Flight idle. Ooh, this is getting worse. Ooh, that might have needed to be a go-around right there. That was, for a moment there, we couldn't even see the runway. And we were well below 200. Coming on the brakes. Whew. Woo, 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 woo. All right. That was a little sketchy. A little sketchy there. All right, let's just get off the runway here. Because I'm using a controller, I don't have like partial throttle. It's like half full, 90%, all this kind of stuff. All right, brakes coming on, flaps are coming up. Woo! Well, November 414 X-ray here. Kyle, I really like this airplane. I really, really like this airplane. It's just a good balance of just old world, I don't know. It's just good. It's just a lot of fun. So, all right, let's start taxiing here. We're gonna taxi back to the end of the runway, start where we were, and then we're gonna look at the chart, and we're gonna pick a different route, a different flight. So we're not going to do the same thing as what we just did. Whew. I also flew it in the evening, so that way it might actually be right at sunset here, so it might even get dark on us. So not only do we have rain and low clouds, if we do this a third time, it definitely might get dark on us. So to me, this is when flight simming really becomes blurring the line between game. But of course, to me, gaming is always about learning. But this is where it really becomes like a simulator, where you can really practice visualization of what you want to accomplish. You're not just looking out of the cockpit as you see it in a lot of my videos, where I can look out the cockpit and see the horizon and really make a quick determination, right, of what I need to do, what control input that I need to do. This is completely different. This, you have to put your trust into your equipment. So we are just going to taxi back here, and then we are going to hold up here, and we are then going to take a look at the charts again, and we're going to pick a different route. We'll do something different this time. Use the instruments. It's all the same frequencies and everything. It's just we're going to fly a different path now. And you can see that. I mean, we're going to do this on the ground, but perhaps you could really understand if you are having to do this in the air, right? Like all of a sudden, air traffic control comes on and says, you know, hey, November 414, X-ray, you're cleared for the, ILS runway 18 with the Hori transition, right, or whatever it might be. And you don't have it programmed in, you have to program that in, so you got to put your head down into the cockpit, right, to do all that stuff. And if you're trying to fly the plane manually, and then you just will slightly turn the control yoke, get yourself into a spiral, but because it's just a gradual turn, the 1 G-force, you think you're straight and level, but you're actually in a spiraling turn, and then boom, you crash in the ground and die. So that is why, even it's a lot of fun to me to really actually learn the systems. I've talked about that before. I like games because I like learning new systems, and clearly this is all about systems, how things work. So, all right, here we are where we started at Myrtle Beach International. We're out of the way. Okay, so now here's all of our instruments. I haven't changed any of the instruments or anything like that, but now let's go over here to the chart. So we're again taking off runway 18, and we can do anything that we want. That's why it's fun, because it's a simulator, it's a game. We can pick what we want to do, whether it's really kind of real or not, but we could actually just fly it, learn it, see if it works, and so on. So this time what we're going to do is we're going to kind of do a similar thing, but let's fly it the other way. I just thought about it. So this time we did all right turns. So we took off, we did a right turn, we flew out to Hori, right? And then we made another right turn. Oh, Action Plaza. Of course, I've been to an air show. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, we actually just lost one. It's really a tragic story. At the Reno Air Races here just yesterday. So one of the jet racers, it looks as if he was in G-lock, because as those guys race and they're in a constant about 4G turn, it looks like eventually he lost consciousness and just crashed right into the ground. So, and of course people were watching it live. People were literally recording it, like recording their TV. So I mean, there's video of it live and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's tragic. And like I said, Hori, or Conway Hori here, which is right here. That's that little airport, Conway Hori. Guys actually took off just like 3 days ago, and they crashed their airplane somewhere right up in here. Both had died. They had engine problems, and they right up in here. So yeah, it's really yeah. So it's really, things happened. And a lot of times 50% of the time, it's actually loss of control of the airplane. It's not a failure or anything like this, but half the time for general aviation accidents, it's really a loss of control. Usually in a transition from either like VFR, visual flight rules, to instrument flight rules, that transition from one to the other, using my eyes to all of a sudden using my instruments, or it could also be a transition of the flight maneuver So like a go around, they pitch up too much, stall, spin in, or it could be engine failure, same thing. They get too slow, they have no power to come out of it, and so they spin. And so, yeah, it just happens. So, but here's what we're going to do this time. Since we're looking, we're going to take off to the south, and what we're going to do is we're going to fly direct to North Myrtle at 3,000 feet again. So we're going to take off, and we're going to fly. We're going to climb out here. Maybe we'll climb. Well, no, we're going to climb straight out to 3,000 feet. Once we get to 3,000 feet, then we're going to do. So we're going to change it up a little bit. So we're going to do a straight climb out to 3,000 feet. Then we're going to do a turn to the left and go direct to Grand Strand, which is right here. It's North Myrtle Beach Airport, or the town, but it's called Grand Strand. Right? So Grand Strand Airport. Then what we're going to do is we're going to fly that radial. Then we're going to come up here and we're going to fly the 288 radial out here. Yep. We're going to fly the 288 radial, and then what we're going to do is we are going to hold, as the chart says, we're going to do this racetrack pattern. We're going to hold here for a couple loops, a couple laps, and then we're going to shoot the approach. That's what we're doing. Okay. So let's go back in the cockpit and let's get everything set up for that. So again, we are going to climb straight ahead to 3,000. So I'm going to go ahead and arm. Cycle that. So I've got 3,000 feet. We're going to climb straight ahead. So I'll go ahead and use the heading bug. So I'm going to use this one right here. And I'm going to set that triangle to the runway heading, which is 177, so which is basically roughly south, right? All right, so there's set up now. Take off straight, climb straight ahead up to 3,000 feet. I can also come over here and tell the flight director, so I can raise up that line to about 8 or 9 degrees right there. So that's telling the autopilot pitch to that line. So I've got that set up. Now everything else I'm not gonna actually set up, because we know that we've already set up the ILS 109.5. It's this right here. This instrument is for the instrument landing system, and we also know that this one here is also set up already for Grand Strand. The issue is that we're going to use this to go direct. So if I just keep dialing this, you can see that it switched from to from. Well, that's not, I don't want to go away from it. I want to go toward it. So I needed to do this the other way. So right now where we're sitting, if I center that line, there we go. It's coming back. There we go. All right, so if I center that line, so right now if I flew a heading of 055, so if I took off and I turned to a heading of 055 immediately, then that would take me right to Grand Strand. But we don't want to do that. We want to take off, we want to climb to 3,000 feet, and then we'll go direct. So we'll do that little exercise that we just did once we're at 3,000 feet. We'll center this, and that will tell us which direction to fly, and then I can either dial that in on the heading right here, or I can tell it to go to nav 2 and just use that instrument right there. And then we come back and we'll shoot the approach again. So sun's getting really low. We got this like apocalyptic haze going on here. So there we go. So we're all now set up. So let's go ahead and do a wingman check. Lights are all on, flaps are all up. And the trim looks good. We're still on, left is on left. We got plenty of fuel. Everything is looking good. I don't know if the pressure, the weather changed. Nope. we're basically at sea level. That's why I picked an airport like this, because we're basically at 0 feet. The altitude. So it's kind of an easier mental picture. If you were at something that was a little obscure, right, like 3,350 feet, it would be a little different, right? But we can all pretty much understand 0. We're going to hit the ground pretty much at 0. So, all right. So I think that's now our mental image, right? So if I go back to the chart, so we're going to take off, climb straight ahead over the water to 3,000 feet, and then we're going to do a left turn, come up here to Grand Strand. At Grand Strand, make another left turn, climb out, or sorry, leave Grand Strand on this 288 radial until we come up here. And then what we're going to do is, once we come out to this point, we're going to fly this around and we're going to fly this loop. This is a holding pattern. And we're going to fly this 1 minute holding pattern here. We'll do it maybe 2 or 3 times. And then once we're ready, then we'll actually then just come onto the holding pattern. And then once we come out of the holding pattern, we'll just come on in and land. That's what we're going to be doing. So, all right. And you can see here, the holding pattern looks to be at or above 2,000 feet. So when we come over here, we need to be at or above 2,000 feet to do this holding pattern. We won't go down to 1,600 because we're not going to intercept the instrument landing system immediately. We're going to go in this holding pattern. So we need to be at 2,000 feet or above. That's what it's telling us. So, all right, with that, let's rock and roll. Yeah, that weather is nasty. And now it's getting dark because I think the sun is really low on the horizon. It's like you can almost just wait until it gets dark. It might even be easier just to see black rather than seeing this apocalyptic haze. So, all right. Go ahead and come up to the holding lines. We can't really see anything, so I guess as we do this, we'll just go ahead and look and see if we see anybody on final. I don't see anybody ready to take off. Not like the last takeoff where we had those jetliners. Yeah, this is just with the winglets and man, this Cessna 414 Chancellor Flysimware. Thumbs up because you are amazing. You did a fantastic job with this. There's a few little glitches on the airplane, but it is amazing. I really enjoy it. Probably the F-16 or so is probably my next favorite. And if you're new, if you're watching, you can see that I really like flying general aviation. Yes, I like the F-16. It's probably my number 2 aircraft. But I really kind of fly it like general aviation, not really like military. Well, you know. So I don't do really a lot of actually, I've never done a commercial flight in here. It's always general aviation. I really like also the low and slow with the tail draggers and the, you know, the bush planes. All right. Same thing here. Let's go ahead and line up and wait. And we have a mental picture of what we want to accomplish. So remember, we're going to climb out straight ahead. We're going to climb up to 3,000 feet. Left turn, direct Grand Strand. Left turn, 288 outbound on Grand Strand until we basically get to our holding point, which is 13 DME, which is that one right there. 13 DME, which is basically where we're at now, but at a little bit different spot in space. And that is where we will do a holding pattern. And then after the holding pattern, once we're done holding pattern, we're ready to go, we'll shoot the approach. So, all right. And with that, bringing some power in, checking everything. Everything's looking good. Full power's coming in, turbos coming in. Back off the turbos, they don't need to work that hard. And we're ready, brakes off, here we go. Trims looks good, everything's look good. I like everything I see, everything's in the green. A little bit of rudder. Airspeed's alive, 40 knots. 60 knots. 80 knots. 90 knots, go ahead and rotate. Positive rate, tap the brakes, gears coming up. See, I already had us in a turn there. I'm coming correcting back. Speed looks good. I'm gonna come back on the power here, climbing through 500 feet. Autopilot's coming on. We're on blue line. Blue line is the speed. Literally, it's a blue line on the airspeed indicator. Blue line right there. See it? Blue line. All right, climbing out. 3,000 feet are armed. Passing through 1,500 feet. Speed looks good. Everything is looking good. Again, I'm already on autopilot. Because even as we took off, I got us into a little bit of a left-hand turn. I actually was visual. I could see the runway over here. I looked down on my instruments, and I could see that it was off. So it's that simple, right? It's that simple. It's that quick when you can't see. All right, 2,000 feet. That alarm was 1,000 to go. So remember, we're going to climb up to 3,000 feet. We're going to slow down. Breathe, breathe, Uncle Mike. So 500 to go on the altimeter, right here. 500 to go to 3,000 feet, which is bugged right there. Then once we get there, we're going to go ahead and figure out, center this to figure out the heading to fly to Grand Strand. And Grand Strand right now is dialed in right here, 114.4 at 15 miles away. And of course this right here is also telling us, I've never used that before, but this right here is telling us what bearing. All right, 2,900. So we're coming up here. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to start at least bring this over. Right now we're flying at a south. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go past this just a little bit. And now as we fly, that needle will start to center. So I'm going to go ahead and tell the autopilot, capture nav 2. So now it's doing a turn to the right, or sorry, to the left, just like we remember our mental picture of our flight path. And now you can see the airplane is making this turn, and it should get to a heading of about 030. We're a little late in the turn, so that's why you see the needle moving off, but okay. The autopilot will compensate for that. Everything is looking good. Altitude is held at 3,000 feet. Speed looks good. I'm going to go ahead, since we're top of the climb, we're going to go ahead and come back on the power. 25 inches of manifold pressure. Slow down. We don't need to be this fast anymore. So I would expect now we're probably going to fly almost a north course. Haha, got the mute on that one. Yep, there's the north course. Maybe say, why is the autopilot flying north? Well, because it's wanting to capture this heading to center that needle. So it's going past it to center it, and then it'll come back. Everything is looking good. 25 inches of manifold pressure. Everything is looking good. I like everything that we see. I don't see anything that's too concerning. 3,000 feet, 158 knots. There's the apocalyptic weather we've got out here because it's sunset and clouds and rain. You can see the autopilot now is coming back to 030 because the needle is centered. All right, so now we can kind of just relax here a little bit, because we are 12 miles out down here, 12 miles out from Grand Strand. So remember, when we come to Grand Strand, we're going to basically turn to the left and fly a heading of 288. Remember, 288. So we're coming up here to Grand Strand. Then we're going to intercept 288 and then out to here, and then we're going to enter the hold. That's what we're going to be doing. So I am just sitting here. There's no reason to look out. We know what it looks like. What does that guy do? Well, fly your instruments, because looking out, man, something's got my nose tickled. I literally feel it in my nose. All right. So we are a little under 8 miles from Grand Strand. 7 point, you can see it ticking down there. We're at 160 knots. Now, how I'm going to intercept or make this change is that I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use the heading. I was doing my hotkey, but I'll do it here. We know that the autopilot is telling us to fly at that heading. So I'm going to go ahead and get the heading bug flying that same direction. Because when we get close, what's going to happen is the needle over there on the instrument is going to get very, very sensitive. And I don't want the autopilot just chasing that needle. So when we get close here, you know, maybe about 2 miles away, I'm going to go on heading mode, and then I'm going to change from our heading over here on this instrument from 030 to the 288 that we want. And then I'm going to switch the autopilot back to nav 1 or back to nav and capture that, because I don't want the autopilot like just chasing this thing. So again, nothing to see. There's a little bit of the ground. There's the water coming right up on the coast. There's Grand Strand Airport right there. You kind of see it. All right, so let's go ahead and get back in the instruments here. So again, I'm going to say 2 miles out, we're at 2.6 from Grand Strand, 2.5, 2.4, 2.3. So I'm going to go ahead now, go on heading mode. So the plane is now using that bug right here for its directional heading, not this instrument. And now we know we want to fly on a 288. So that is right there is 288. And you can see that it switched to from already. So we can do it like ourselves. So what we can do is we can, since we're real close, I'm going to go ahead and have the plane 288. I'm going to go ahead and have it turned to like 300. There goes, I can see the needle moving on our instrument right here. Right there. So we're going to be flying past it. So 288. So I'm going to have the plane go to 270. There we go. Now if we want to make that needle come more, we'll just go 288. So we'll go ahead and come more to the left, because that's what it's telling us to do. We want to be on 288, but the needle's way over to the left, so we need to go left. So we're going to fly. There comes the needle. The needle is alive, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to nav mode. And now the plane is going to want to capture that needle right there. Well, we're gonna land back. We're landing back at. We're going back to Myrtle Beach, same airport, same approach. We're just doing, instead of doing a right pattern, we're now going left. So we're at Myrtle Beach. Yep. So it's Kilo Mike Yankee Romeo. KMYR is the. Okay. Now we're going to get up for a holding pattern. So if we go back to the chart. So now we're on this line. We're flying away here on this line. We're going to come up here. We're going to do a teardrop reverse entry into this holding pattern right here. That's what we're going to be doing. All right. So all of the directions. So we cross over here at 13 nautical miles. That's that point right there. We're going to come up here. All right. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to turn to a 357 heading. Actually, well, we're going to come up here. Yeah, we're going to do a teardrop entry into that. So we're going to come up here. Actually, we're going to do a reverse. We're going to come up here. We're going to fly out, turn around, come back, and then be in the hold here. That's what we are going to be doing. So, yeah, I know. I'm into saying, look at it, look at it, look at it. It looks like the apocalypse outside. So, oh, you can't see. There you go. It looks like the apocalypse outside. All right, so what we're going to be doing is right here, when this gets to 13 or almost 13, so like 12.5, not quite 13, what we are going to want to do is we're going to come on heading mode, but we know what heading we want to fly from the chart, and the heading is 357. So I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to go ahead and dial in the heading mode to 357. There we go. So when this reads 12.5, I'm going to hit heading mode and the plane's going to go ahead, make a turn, and we're going to teardrop enter into that holding pattern. And the holding pattern is set at 12 DM or 13 DME from Grand Strand. So, and we need to do that down to 2,000 feet. So we'll come down here, 2,000 feet. We'll rearm. I'm now going to tell the autopilot, hey autopilot, start descending down to 2,000 feet, at or above 2,000. So we'll bug it for 2,000, at or above 2,000. All right. You can see that we're 10 DME at 12.5. We're going to go ahead and click that button, heading mode, and have the autopilot turn to the outbound, the reciprocal of what we want to do to land. Because we're going to go out, teardrop, and then do a holding pattern. Looking down there at the DME, I'm looking down here. Is what I'm looking at right here. Literally, to do this is 12.5 DME. Click that button, and then we'll need to start. We'll have to start thinking about timing. All right, here we go. Here we go. 12.1, 12.2. All right, 12.5 heading mode. Plane's going to now come over here. You see the needle centering because that's the center of the runway. You can see you can think you can see the plane turning, but we can verify that because there's our instruments telling it, yep, it's turning. All right. So there we go. What I'm going to do now is to go ahead and enter that. I am going to go ahead and tell this. Oh, look at that. That is apocalyptic. All right, we're going to fly 1 minute on this heading. What we're going to do is we're going to fly 1 minute out. All right. Then what we're going to do is basically then we're going to turn 45 degrees. We're going to come back and then it looks like we're going to land, but we're going to actually be in a holding pattern. So we're flying directly away from where we want to land right now. So we've been flying this direction for 40 seconds now. At 1 minute, we're going to deviate 40 degrees to the right, or sorry, to the left. Because we're entering the holding pattern. So we're coming up on right here. So here we go. 45 is right there. There we go. And now we're into our flight outbound here. We're going to fly this. Now for 1 minute. Then we're going to do a 180 degree turn, come back, intercept, and now we'll be in the right position to do the holding pattern. So what we're doing is we're flying out here and we're entering the holding pattern. So we're flying out, away, 180, come back, and then enter the hold. That's what we're doing here. That doesn't tell you specifically how to make an entry into the holding pattern. This is how we're entering the holding pattern with basically, I think it's kind of like a standard teardrop. All right, we're coming up on another minute. And there we go, another minute. We're going to do a 180. So 180 will be 135 on the heading. So I just bugged it there. Everything's looking good. We're doing everything at or above 2,000 feet. All we're doing here is just getting into that holding pattern right here. We're just getting into this racetrack right here on the right heading. 177 in, 357 out for a standard hold. We're not in the holding pattern yet. We're entering it. All right, here we come. Because we're fast, I'm going to go ahead and we're now going to go straight toward the runway. You can see that needle's pretty close to being center. That's pretty good right there. And of course we could come just a little bit to the right. And now, again, we know that when this DME right there, when that reads 13, that we're right there at that point where we need the holding pattern. Wow, it's getting really dark outside. But it doesn't really matter to us because we're on instruments. Alright, so now where are we? We are inbound up here. Coming in, we're waiting for that DME to read 13, and then we'll start to enter the holding pattern, which is basically north and south. 177 degrees, 357. Simple as that. 1 minute, we'll do 1 minute holding pattern. So I don't need this anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and zero it. There we go. So now it's 0. Because I am waiting, I will start that clock again when this right here reads 13. When that reads 13, we're going to start the holding pattern. So we're heading south. We'll do a 180, head north. 1 minute intervals. That's why we have the timer. A lot going on. Again, you see a lot of stuff when it's, you know, on flight sim and when everything's working great and oh, it's just great. You put weather like this and old standard instruments. Yeah. This is when Uncle Mike like, yeah, it's all bad. All right, we're coming up on 13 DME right here. 13.8, 13.7, 13.6, 13.5. What we're going to do, we're going to start the clock. Here we go. Oop, wrong trigger. There we go. Start the clock. And oop. And we're going to start that turn. 180 turn. To heading 357. Now we're in the holding pattern. If you've been on a commercial airliner, you might have felt where a lot of times just doing the same turn over and over and over again, especially when there's bad weather or it's busy. Like a lot of times flying to Orlando, Florida from here, you get into a spot and all you're doing is just going around. It feels like you're going around in circles. You're in a holding pattern. You can see that it's going to take us just about exactly 1 minute to do that 180-degree turn. So now we're outbound now. We're going to fly for another minute and then turn back around. That's a holding pattern. So we're going to fly straight and level now for 1 minute. What are we doing? We're doing this racetrack loop right here now. And then when we're ready, we'll shoot the approach. Simple as that. Mental picture. Have everything planned. Visualize what you're doing. So we got 30 seconds now in our straight and level before we do a 180-degree turn. I got the autopilot working for me, working with me. That way it's keeping the task load down that I have to do, that I'm not sitting here actually trying to click buttons and fly the plane all at the same time. Ten seconds before we do our 180. I'm not going to reset it. I'm just going to wait until the timer gets to 2 minutes. And there we go. Now we're going to turn to a heading of 177. There we go, 177. So now we're inbound. We're turning inbound now. This is what we'll do on our next circuit. So we're going to come back. We're going to do another lap, another hold, come around, and when we come around the next time on 177, we're going to land. I don't even know what. Do we want to look and see what it looks like outside? Ooh, that looks pretty dark. That looks pretty gnarly. Oh, we are in the soup. I'm gonna take a screenshot because that is in the soup. I don't want to look outside. All right, so there we go. Now we're straight and level inbound. (177). Got a little bit of a wind correction, so I'm going to go correct for the wind. I can tell we've got a wind. We're kind of getting blown that way because the needle is really not centering. So we come around this next time, I'm not going to fly as far toward the north. So, all right, so we've got about 20 seconds here on this leg. Then we'll fly the outbound leg of the hold. Five seconds to go. And let's go ahead and start our turn, but I am not going to go as far north, so I'm going to do, instead of going like 357, I'm going to do like 350. Should take us literally a minute at standard rate to go a 180. Alright, so now we're outbound. Not quite out of the turn. Autopilot's slowing down here just a little bit, but there we go, 1 minute. So we'll fly 1 minute on this heading. Then what we're going to do on the next 180, we are inbound, heading 177. We are then going to intercept the localizer and land. So it's going to be the same thing as what we did last time now. We have just flown a different route to get onto the instrument landing system, the ILS, for 118 at Myrtle Beach. Seconds to go on this straight and level. Then we're going to, like I said, we are going to go ahead and turn 177, but we are going to intercept the localizer. Coming up here on 1 minute and 1 minute. Let's go ahead and make our turn. And this way, I'm going to fly a little bit to wind compensate. I'm going to fly due south. And I can see that I'm already going to be overshooting the center of the runway because of the wind, so I'm just going to compensate. All right, with this, we're below 171 knots. Gear's coming down. First notch of flaps coming down. Look at that, can't even see nothing. Look at the soup. Oh, God. But I can see the gears down, so. All right, coming through 140 knots. All right, so it's going to equalize on this heading. I am now going to do a 30-degree offset to intercept the localizer. So now I'm just watching this line right here. I'm going to go with nav 1. So once I click on nav, it's going to pick up this instrument. It's going to want to intercept this instrument, which is going to be the localizer, the center of the runway, and the glide slope, just like we did the last landing. I'm just waiting for that needle right here to come alive. Then I'm going to click nav, which is going to intercept nav 1, which is this instrument, which is 1095. Thing is looking good. All right, needle's alive. Nav, you can see it goes to localizer and glide slope. So now the autopilot is going to fly us, it's going to try to center that needle and our glide slope needle, but we haven't intercepted that yet. I'm going to go ahead and center the heading bug for us, just so we know which way the plane wants to fly. That way, in case we need to come off nav mode into heading mode. All right. We are now on the instrument landing approach into runway 18 into Myrtle Beach again. Just came from it from a different direction. Everything is looking good. We're right on blue line. So speed looks good. First notch of flaps. Let's check gear. 30 green. Flaps. First notch of flaps down. Everything is looking good. Props are full. Mixture's full. Everything is looking good. Outside. Can't see anything. Let's just fly the instruments. We are 13.2 DME from the runway. At about 7 DME, 7 nautical miles, that's when these needles will come alive. The glide slope will come alive. Everything's looking good. I like to call them auto, our little German autopilot, or co-pilot, autopilot. But again, lots going on. It's now dark, rainy, clouds, low visibility, right? There's no horizon whatsoever. Everything is now all instruments. Looking good. At 2,000 feet, we're on localizer. Speed looks good. Gear is down. First notch of flaps already down. We're 11 miles out. Again, right here. 10.8 out. This is ground speed. This is airspeed. I'm looking at this blue line. I'm just using this right here for the distance, for the DME. How far we are away. Oh, clouds are breaking. We actually can see. Well, we got clouds and rain right in front of us, though. Let's go ahead and get back in the cockpit. We don't want to confuse ourselves. Just gonna go ahead and zero the heading bug. Put it right back on what we're at. So everything is looking good. 9.6 miles out now. Again, somewhere below 7, we should start to see our. Oh no, we're higher, so we start seeing these now. Oh, yep, here they come now. So they are moving now. We're at 2,000 feet, not 1,600. We need to be at or above 1,600. 2,000 is, so we're good there. So here comes our glide path. They're coming in. And so we will watch and make sure Otto, our German co-pilot, intercepts the glide slope. So from now on, I am not going to look up until we're at probably about 500 feet above the ground. So here comes the glide path, glide slope. Otto should intercept. Yep, there's the pitch down for the intercept. Speed's increasing. I'm gonna lower another notch of flaps. Flaps down, indicated. 2 notches. Just gonna watch the speed. Oh, didn't mean to reset that. Let's go ahead and get back in the cockpit. Speed looks good. I'm gonna come off. Go to about 22, 23 inches of manifold pressure. Slow down here just a little bit. We're on glide slope. We are on localizer. Speed 120 knots. Two notches of flaps, gears down, 3 green. Looking good, looking good. .3 inches of manifold pressure. Props full. We're on blue line. Otto's got us a little high of glide slope. It's okay. We'll probably correct here. He seems to do that pretty well. Still on localizer. Of course, I threw him for a loop. I dialed in some more flaps there for him, so he's got to balance all that out and trim that all out. All right, 1,000. That's just telling us that we're 1,000 below our target, which we had targeted in at 2,000. Remember, I am not going to come off autopilot or look up until either 500 feet or I have the runway. So we're at 800 feet. So at 500 feet, I'm going to look up, but then we're going to make a decision about when to turn off the autopilot. All right, getting a little slow, so I'm going to add some power. We're below blue line just a little bit. 700 feet. .600 feet. Everything is looking good. I expect to be a little high, but right on the center line. All right, 500 feet, transitioning outside. Do not have the runway made. We are way high of glide slope. Not sure what Otto's doing. Must have a micro burst or something maybe right here. 350. Oh, there's the runway. Autopilot's coming off. Woo! Runway made. Flight idle. Yep, we're high. I knew that from my instruments, so I had a mental picture of what I was about to see. My airplane, my airplane. A little bit of a wind, or I'm just heavy on the controls here. Let it settle. Let it settle. Ooh, butter farmer! Butter farmer! There's no reason for me to transition outside. I can't see anything. Brakes, taxiway coming up. Oh, there's a high speed. I'll take it. I will take it. Ooh. All right, let's go ahead and clean this thing up. Brakes coming on. Flaps coming up. Woo. Well, that was intense. So we did two approaches there, runway 18 here at Myrtle Beach, from two different directions, two styles of approaches with a bunch of different maneuvers and all of that. So I hope you enjoyed it. It was a little stressful for me because it is live. So, and like I said, I've run out of fuel and I've crashed, and I've recreated crashes in real world here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So clearly I don't want to do that when I'm live streaming, but it's already happened. But yeah, here with this bad weather, and then of course it went through sunset and now dark and all of that, so you can really see how it becomes a burden inside the cockpit, and the task load and the workload inside the cockpit can be just too much if you're trying to fly visually. You need to understand, you need to actually practice your flight simmers, you know, really practice what your instruments are telling you. Trust your instruments, get your head in the cockpit, because there's no reason to look outside because you can't see anything outside, plus it's probably going to give you false information if you look outside. Anyway, so, well, I hope you enjoyed this. I know I sure did enjoy doing this flight. And like always, click that like button if you do, subscribe if you haven't. Please come and join me in chat on a future live stream. And game on, because I'm your favorite gamer's favorite uncle. I am Uncle Mike. Good night, everybody. Bye. Woo. That was some stressful flying. Hope you learned something. It was great practice for me. Really enjoy Microsoft Flight Simulator. It is amazing.